point of view we take on life and life around us ends up defining our actions, and those actions are what end up building the world we see around. In 2007, when I finished school in Chile, I decided to go into economics in university. And I love to show this photo because it proves that I was actually in university for a while. And I remember that on the economics class, the thing the teacher most put his energy into is to making sure that we understood that the main goal in any company is to maximize profit, which means lower your cost as much as you can, sell as much as you can at the higher price you can. So in that same class, he told us that we had a homework. We had to build our own project, and the one that had the highest profits would have the highest grade. So I remember I started thinking, what can I do? If I did a project, what would I do? And eventually I ended up saying, okay, I can do sunglasses. If I would do it, I would do sunglasses. Why? Because they're cool, they're sexy, people are using them, it's a fashion product, it's more and more people wearing glasses as a fashion statement, so maybe I can make a good business. Then, okay, if I make glasses, how would I make them? So I started looking up at different materials. And after making different studies, I said, I'm going to use virgin plastic. I had read that virgin plastic was made out of oil, and oil uses different refinery processes, which are very toxic and contaminating. The whole process means that the oil is generating war around the world, and it's making many problems our society is having today. But I had to have the highest grade. I needed the profit, so I said, I'll do it anyways. And then I had to see where to make them. And after finding different parts of the world, I decided to make them in China. Because obviously it's cheaper, so I would have the highest grade. And I had read, I felt a little bit bad about this one because I knew that people weren't paid very fairly, the conditions weren't very good, we're increasing the gap between the people who have the most and the less, and there's many problems coming out of it. But again, I really wanted the best grade, so I said I would do it in China. And then, once I imported them back to Chile, what I would do was make people believe that they really needed my glasses. Because if they wear my glasses, they would be cool, they would be sexy, they would get the girls, they would be very, very cool. And I'm quite sure that if I have done that, I would have made a big business, and my teacher would have been very proud of me. But I didn't do that. And I started thinking about it, and this model didn't make much sense to me. So I started, after deciding quitting university, I decided to start studying on my own and making a little bit of research behind the economic model we're living in today. And to my surprise, I found out that one of the biggest industries in the world turns out to be one of the most contaminating industries in the world, which is fashion. Some say it's among the 2 or 3, some say it's among the 5 most contaminating industries in the world. But what's very interesting about this industry, compared to any other industry in the world, is that it reaches directly to consumers or people with a message. And it's constantly bombarding us with a message. And this message so far, in my opinion, has been making a big damage to our society, because it's shaping the way we think, and therefore it's shaping the world, our whole society. But at the same time, this means a great opportunity, because it's a huge communications channel that we can use. So if you look deeper into the fashion industry, you'll see that sunglasses, or eyewear in general, is a very iconic element, a very iconic product in this industry. You wear it on your eyes, you can see the world through them, and you see them before people's eyes. So what if we could make the highest quality eyewear in the world under a completely different business logic, with a completely different value chain, with a completely different production process? Then you would be making a statement. And what if we do it from Latin America to the world? Then you'll be making a statement, a change of paradigm, a change of way of thinking. So we started working, and what I want to talk to you today is about what I call the next generation eyewear. And when I say next generation, it's nothing to do with new technology necessarily, but it's about regeneration. It's about a different perspective, a different point of view of what a business is and can be. So the first thing is, if you want to make sunglasses like this as a symbol, you need to start with a material. So we're using different materials. We're using very high quality eyewear for sports, for urban and also premium that are more handmade. So the first thing is, okay, what materials do we use? And unfortunately, we're surrounded by waste. We have an abundance of waste. So one of the biggest problems we have in the world today is the ocean plastic pollution. It's more than 8 million tons of plastic going to the ocean every year, which is very difficult to get. But you can compare it approximately to having one full loaded truck of plastic throwing plastic into the ocean every minute. Imagine the amount of plastic we have. And almost 10% of that is fishing gear. So it's a big amount. Also, we have, as I said before, fashion is a terrible industry in this respect. It's only in North America there's more than 3 billion pairs of jeans being produced. And approximately 80% of it eventually ends up in landfills. And we have many other ways. Obviously, we've been using wood through all our history. And most of that wood is going to landfills and not going where it should be in the ground. So you can reuse that as well. So for the last 5 years, we've been working very hard to look at waste under a different perspective and see value in what we usually see as something that's no value. And how can we turn fishing nets into 100% sunglasses, or jeans into glasses that can replace plastic, or wood? And obviously it's not just recycling. We won't change the world by recycling more. That's an important part, but it's a very small part of the whole thing. So we're also developing new natural materials that can be composted afterwards, that can come out of the ground and go back to the ground, and then can compete in price, in quality, in performance with the big materials we're using today. But this is just a very small part. Materials are just a very small fraction of our production processes, in general, as any productive company. So we're trying to make sure that we include people like Don Tito. And I want to explain how are we putting together into a whole value chain that can be regenerative, into a production process that can scale up and can become global. So Don Tito is a guy that lives in Chile, in the south in Patagonia, in Aysén, in a very beautiful region. And like millions of people around Latin America, Don Tito doesn't have the same opportunities that we do living in cities. So Don Tito has the economic incentive of destroying the forest because he needs to survive, so he cuts the wood, he heats himself and his family, and he cuts the wood because he needs space for the cows and sheep. So, and this is where a very interesting B Corporation, which I admire a lot, comes in. It's just called Balloon. It's a B Corp that they support rural entrepreneurs and they empower the communities through entrepreneurship. So what they're doing is, for example, to Don Tito, instead of Don Tito working as he was working, I just explained, they share knowledge together so that Don Tito can change his business model to ecotourism, for example. So then he has an economic incentive of protecting the forest. He sees more value in the live forest than in the wood, which means that then he can charge tourists to go there. At the same time, he generates income for his cousins, his daughters, that make the jam or the honey, or other people that go hiking and take tourists hiking, and it creates a very positive cycle around all this. So the question here is, how do we put Don Tito together with the waste that I just explained? And how can we turn that into a supply chain that can help us develop a sustainable business that can grow and that can hopefully be replicated in other parts of the world, not only in Chile? So this is where a new NGO that we just created comes in. It's called Recava. It stands for a collaboration between 3 B corporations. One is called Rembre, it's recycling. Other called Karun, which is us, and the other one is Balloon, which I just explained. So what we're trying to do is changing the logic that I just explained before into a cyclical one and regenerative one. So on one side, you have the community that is generating waste, so as we all are. And that waste is collected, and with that, we turn it into raw material for different kinds of products. For example, sunglasses. As I explained, it's a very iconic product, so it can be used as an example for other industries. And at the same time, on the same community, on site, we're turning the plastic into final products, such as cups, such as tables, and others, so that the same community can sell them through retailers or right there, and that in itself is generating income. So that income that we generate with these products, or with the raw material, goes into an investment fund. It's a local investment fund. It's an impact investment fund that is investing in Don Tito so that Don Tito can scale his sustainable business up. So, and this is our supply chain of raw material. So how can we change the perspective of what waste can be in the local rural communities so that they can become a source of income that can become a high-quality product so that the same community can thrive. So far, we are in La Región de los Lagos, in one place in the south of Chile. We are impacting 100 local entrepreneurs through Balloons program. We hope this year we're going to end up recycling more than 2 tons of clothes, more than 10 tons of fishing nets, and 20 tons of other waste such as bottles and cardboard and metals that can be turned into products. Only by the same collaboration we have today, we can get already to 1,600 entrepreneurs in Latin America through the communities that Balloon is already present, more than 40 tons of clothes, more than 200 tons of fishing nets, and eventually more than 400 tons of other waste. But this is just a very small thing. It's just 3 small companies coming together and trying to do the best we can. We won't get far like this. So imagine what we could do if we come together with other companies like Triciclos, like Natura, like Danone, and all the other, and Virgin, and all the other big corporations around the world, that we can collaborate and work together. Imagine the impact we can make together and replicate these models around the world. This can be huge, and it's not expensive. It's just a matter of integrating into your business supply chain, and it can be very impactful. We're from Chile, and the inspiration, and we're working today is in Patagonia, which is a very far away part from the rest of the world. And when we started, everyone thought, and everyone told us that it was completely impossible to build a business that was economically sustainable and under this perspective. And even more so, it was even more impossible to make an international business from Chile. And I can imagine that my teacher would say the same thing. But today, it's really incredible because we're collaborating with people from Italy, from France, from Sweden, from the US, from Colombia, hopefully from Brazil soon. And we're working together. We have an office in Stockholm, we have an office in Santiago and Patagonia, and sunglasses are beginning to become a symbol of the different perspective we can have in the world. So I just want to take a moment to highlight one very important thing, and as this event is about the B Corps and Natura's recertification. We are a B Corp, and so is thousands of people around the world. There are small or bigger B Corps that are trying to make a change. And I think this is not even close to being enough. We won't make a change just by having more B Corps. We need to understand that the change we need needs to come from collaborations of different parts of society. I've had the pleasure to meet Raj and Keith from the B team. I know there's people from the B team here, and I think the potential of collaboration that we can have from big business leaders and big companies like you guys with smaller guys from around the world that are really pushing and having all the energy to make a change can, at the least, inspire potentially millions of people from around the world to start acting. And what we need now is less talk and more acting. So I think it's a privilege to be a part of this group, and I can see the potential of things that we can create together. So after this, let's try to create it. And just a final reflection. I think the whole experience of making this has come to a conclusion that, okay, we're making a different business, or we're trying to make a different business, but this is just a very small part. And I think the most interesting thing is that if we want to change the world, as we all do, it's not about just changing business, it's about changing ourselves, it's about changing the perspective through who we look at. We're all wearing glasses, and the glasses I talk about are invisible glasses. We all have a certain perspective of our world. So we need to understand that it's not about only new technologies or big capital or new machinery or new technologies. We need a new perspective of how we want to live and what we see in a business. So I invite you all to look at the world from a different point of view. Thank you.